Hey, what's up? So some of you know me, some of you don't. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kyle. And for those of you who do know me, this is a little unconventional, out of the ordinary for me. I'm not the type of person who likes to do videos, likes to use social media that much. And really, the reason why I'm doing this is I want to try to just speak to you guys from my heart. Not something I am used to doing, just because in the past, in life when I do speak my heart, usually people really like just do what they do normally, kind of like knock it down, or people aren't very kind when people share their heart or are vulnerable. So I tend to be more reserved. I tend to only be open with people that are closer to me. But I've just been growing a lot lately. A lot has been going on in my life, and even if no one else gets anything out of this, I at least wanted to make the video for myself, just so I can express myself, and as a step of like growth and maturity as I'm just moving forward as a person. So I guess the context, maybe it'd be good to give a little background info. I grew up in Colorado, living in California right now. Both very great places. I like both of them, but I like California more. And so growing up in Colorado, I was there all the way through college, and a few years after that, and I grew up an only child, which I actually didn't know that was not too normal until like later in college or something like that. But I grew up, an only child, and I grew up in a Christian home. And at a young age, I really wanted to take religion seriously. I think a lot of us, you approach religion out of a place of like, okay, what is this, first of all? Why is this such a big theme for people, and why do people have such strong feelings and beliefs about it? And there's so many differing opinions and perspectives, different religions, and even within a religion, there's just all kinds of variation. So for me, as a kid, I was like, okay, this really seems like a mess. People clearly don't have this figured out. But, it was important to me because there is the big questions plaguing me of like, what's the meaning of life? How did everything get here? And big, lofty questions that are like really frustrating to consider and try to answer. So to me, at the time, religion seemed like the closest thing to answering those questions, or at least providing some insight into those things. So I was like, okay, this is going to be like a lifelong thing to figure this out. but I just was like, well, I see a lot of confident people who are like have really strong faith in as Christians. So I was like, I have access to this. Let me let me start here and let me really just find out, okay, what is this Bible? What are these people talking about? So for a long time I grew up in the church, and I'm just gonna fast forward because there's way too many details. And like slowly over time learned, the culture, learned the Bible and what the teachings of Christianity. Obviously not all the denominations, there's like too much of that. And it's just like, I don't know. I just it was too much for me. So I just, over time, really grew in my faith, but I was also around puberty, this is where things started to get more complicated for me, because up to that point I was like, as a kid, I'm like, all right, puberty, I wonder like what that's going to be like, how that's going to happen. And I expected what everyone would expect is like, okay, I'm a guy, I'm gonna like women, and yeah, if you couldn't tell already, because that was a big foreshadow, first thing was not sexual attraction to women for me. And so my initial experience of being attracted to guys as a young kid was, man, that was some really scary stuff, because just the culture, like, you're just taught to like, I don't know, you're taught that it's disgusting. You're taught to be like, there's all this fear and like lofty, crazy, out there ideas about it. There's just like all this social stigma, whether it's adults, whether it's your peers, you're pretty much guaranteed, like, and things are changing now to where, especially younger generation, there isn't as much like verbal and physical abuse, just like the ridiculous, like, traumatic bullying that happens to people. But yeah, there's just like so much abuse that happens with, I mean, any minority issue. So I mean, it put me in a really weird position, because growing up as a white guy, I have like a lot of opportunity and a position in society that a lot of people don't have. And it is interesting growing up in a place where I had that dynamic in my life, where I was the majority and I was like highly accepted by society, but in my internal life, what was going on is this whole like crazy minority issue. Because I mean, as far as minorities go, being gay is a pretty small minority. Um, it's not that common, and I think that contributes a lot to the stigma and the difficulty people have had with actually like humanizing, like putting a human to the face of the issue, and like because you just don't meet a lot of people, and that's slowly starting to change as more people are open about it. But that's the thing about sexual orientation is you can hide it if you by willpower you can hide it, and a lot of people will lead you to believe by willpower you can change that and that it's a choice. And for my life and my journey, that was what I wanted to believe more than anything else, that you could change it. And I know, like, I've heard from people, whether they grew up in a religious culture, like with religious faith or not, just the impact that has on the way that people treat you and associate with you and interact with you is just no. It's very rare I haven't met a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, this is what I chose, this is what I wanted. And it took me a long time to finally recognize for myself that, look, a lot of things are changing in my life. Like my faith can impact and allow me to change in a lot of areas in my life for the better, but the like the whole time I was like trying to believe what other people were saying and trying to like deny what was just apparent in my life for the hope that it would change, and the hope that I could be straight, and the hope that, you know, I would be able to have this a thing of the past and just move it all, push it behind me. But that was just, yeah, there was just so much fear. And I think that it took so long. And I think from the outside, people who aren't gay, it takes them so much longer to come to terms with people's sexuality because of so much fear that's associated with it. And I had so much, and like it's associated with a lot of things. Like I had so much self-hate. I had like a very many years of depression where it was getting like I didn't actually go get treatment for it, which I mean, looking back, I probably should have. My quality of life probably would have been a lot better if I had gotten help for that sooner. But I basically just relied on my faith and Christianity, and I mean, I was able to manage through that. I was able to work through my depression despite this my sexuality not changing and being this consistent, like, looming cloud over my life that was just always affecting every moment of every day, where I'm just like, it's just like this cage, and you're like, I can't, like, when am I ever going to be free of this? And when am I ever just going to be able to live my life and not have to deal with this? I do want to illustrate kind of like the turning point, because this plays into it, the turning point for me with how I was approaching my sexuality, um, and what really was like kind of the tipping point for me, which is kind of like over a year into living in California. At that point, I was maybe 26 or 27. So if you imagine, I have been dealing with this for a very long time. Um, I dealt with a lot other issues in my life for long periods of time, and it's just those things get dealt with. Like they change, you grow as a person, and you move forward, and you don't struggle with the same stuff. And so this something was clearly wrong, and it was kind of a point of like do or die. Like, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to double down on my initial commitment, on the thing that the church and people around me are reinforcing, like pursue this, like this is what God wants you to do. You can be straight. This is a choice that you can make. And I won't get into all the things that I went through in that process with the church. Or, but in any case, what I did decide at this point was to double down, and I was just like, okay, like I felt like I've given it my all, but maybe there's more I can give. Maybe God will give me strength to overcome this, and this is just a extreme adversity that I can overcome by continuing to trust in God. And so what does it look like to pursue a straight relationship? Well, to pursue a straight lifestyle, or to pursue being straight when that's not what's naturally happening for you. Well, it looks like my mistake said, pursuing a straight relationship. And I had waited a long time because I felt like I wasn't in the right place to take that step yet. I felt like there was a lot of things that I needed to work on in order to be ready for that. Because it was very serious for me. And so I didn't force it to happen. It was something that naturally came about, and it was like, okay, there's this interest, like mutual interest. Mind you, like I up to this point I've never had sexual attraction to women, but there's like on a personal level, like there's a personal connection. This is a person that I'm drawn to, and me and her, we developed a relationship. Starting out, just getting to know each other, and just it developed. I don't know. I felt like it developed really naturally. We kind of took things really slow and ended up eventually dating. And in that process, really got to know each other really well. I was open to her about everything that I was dealing with. And I was open to her about my whole struggle with sexuality, and wanting to work through it and overcome it. And she was extremely supportive. She was very, granted, she's coming from a different perspective than me, but she's a great woman, and I highly respect her. So this was the point for me where things things got to a whole nother level, and it was to the point, because up to that point I recognized the way I had been facing my sexuality, the way I had been treating it this whole time, the way I was living my life, pursuing a straight lifestyle, that was gambling with my own life. That's kind of an abstract way to put it, but if you think about it, I'm betting my life on this. Like, because this affects everything. This affects everything in my life. And at this point, it became very real to me that not only have I been gambling with my own life, but now I'm bringing another person's life into it, and then, potentially a family, so kids. And as a part of my pursuit of dealing with my sexuality, there's just a lot of examples out there that I had found out, like guys who are gay getting into these relationships with women, starting a family, and then somewhere along the line, down the road, like years and years, like decades later, you just can't keep that up. Like, you can't act like it's right. You can't act like it's coming from a real place, or that it wasn't like coming out of this weird religious pressure, or it's just, I don't know how to describe it except unnatural. Like, being in that situation, what felt natural is like the friendship that I felt and the deep care for this person, as like, this is someone that I love and care about, but it's not romantically. And I even trying to do romantic things, you just, in life, when you do an action, if it's fabricated or genuine. So I think I was coming to a place in my life with this pursuing this straight relationship where that was all really at a heightened place for me, and I was really having to face a lot of the insecurities that I had. And I think that was most important, is like, if I don't get this right for myself first, then how can I present myself to people in a way that's more honest and real? And because for so much of my life I was giving into those fears, and that I was essentially living by that fear. I was letting that kind of dictate how I was interacting with people, that it was really scary, because that was the pattern of my life. That's all I knew. That's how I knew to interact with people. And to actually change that and to be more vulnerable, where I already felt like my current level of vulnerability was not respected, it was taken advantage of, and people were like, it was already painful and hurtful enough to be that vulnerable with people. It was just scary to face the idea of, okay, now I'm going to be even more vulnerable with people. It's really counterintuitive, because you know, that fear was very real because of the pain, like the internal emotional pain, the and I guess like a lot of for a lot of people, maybe you could relate of like I had very thin skin in a sense. Like I needed to develop thick skin to where I could be vulnerable with people and people could do like respond in ways that were hurtful, but for me to still like have integrity and function well like internally and not have to like have more strength to take what people had to say and be able to like kind of what I ended up doing is really start to mentally approach things differently, where it's like, okay, you're saying these things about me, but what does it matter if you don't actually know me? And that was the thing, is like I had to be okay to let go of the relationships that I wanted to have because of that fact that they don't actually know me. And so it's almost as if that the grounds for the relationship wasn't even that real in the first place. So how can I hold on to something like I was at the point where I was like, I don't want to hold on to things that aren't real. Like I don't want to hold on to things that were like made possible by my own strength of like wanting to protect myself and like I also have these relationships that I wanted at the same time. So after processing all of that stuff, I was like, okay, this isn't holding me back anymore. And the other big thing was my faith. And there's just so much stuff that I actually had to process in terms of my faith that it's probably more appropriate to talk about that stuff in a different video. Because that was a much deeper process, and I think that it would really not do it justice if I just go try to quick say something here at the end of the video, because I just want to wrap this up. Through that whole process, I basically came out to myself and I was like, this isn't just something that I am struggling with, but this is how I am. This is how I was created. And you know, I don't know why God created me this way, but I'm going to start being thankful that God created me the way that I am, instead of just rejecting myself and hating myself. And yeah. And so after I did that, I came out to my parents and close friends. So anyways, yeah, this is basically, that's the coming out video, even though I didn't really need to do one because I already came out to everyone that needs to know. But yeah, since then I married my best friend Sean. That's a whole nother video, multiple other videos. I'm sure we'll tell you all about it.